What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing the Baltimore Ravens 7-round 2025 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is not predictive. These are just the players I love in the order that I love them. Feel free to go check out my X page as well, where I post all 22 clips. And then if you want to support the show, use code HAILMARY when you sign up for UnderDog Fantasy. They get you up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you sign up, and for me, they send me $60. Full transparency, but it's actually an app that I use, regardless of whether you guys use it or not. I think they're a great company. I love to support them. But let's get into this. I promised you guys every team before free agency officially starts, and we're almost there. So it's going to be a busy day. In case you have other teams that you're a fan of, I am getting through all 32. Let's get into this. Let's have a great time. This is a live mock draft, and we're going to be referencing our lads' depth chart this whole entire time. So pick number 27 comes around, and it's pretty obvious. I'm going to go Malachi Starks' pick, but let's review the roster first, or the depth chart. These ads are going to be annoying as hell. I get it. There's some other stuff that you can end up using, but, Google Chrome, got to do what you got to do, and our lads is pissy with ad blockers. But I digress. Quarterback Lamar Jackson, GOAT. We don't need to waste time talking about him in terms of this mock draft. Running back-wise, I honestly think you have a really solid group of backs here. I do. Derrick Henry is showing to be pretty much ageless, which is incredible. And then you got Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell's so fun. Really good player. And shout out to Marshall Rasheen Ali. Love him to death. But tight end wise, there's some talks about teams wanting to try to trade for Mark Andrews. I know a lot of Chargers fans are saying yo, let's send a 4th round and, get him back to Roman. I got a hiccup. But Isaiah Likely, love him. Charlie Kohler's such a good tight end 3. You guys are in such a good spot right there. You look at the offensive line. I'm not a big Daniel Failele guy. Roger Rosengarten was a big fan of him coming out. Great pickup. Tyler Linderbaum was a top 10 player on my board when he came out, and that included him being a center, so loved him to death. Patrick McCarry's gone. Don't really trust Andrew Voorhees to be the full-time starter every single down, so I still think interior offensive line could be a move, but it's going to be more so for a competitor, because I think Voorhees is a fringe starter, and that's really, really good value, obviously, where you ended up getting him, because he had, I believe it was an ACL tear on his pro day, which really sucked. And then re-signing Ronnie Stanley was the best thing you could have done. I am so proud of y'all for doing that. That's the best thing. And I was just, when I saw that, I took a deep breath. And I'm a Steelers fan, but I'm a fan of all 32 teams at this point. And it's good to see you guys doing the right thing, which EDC does the right shit, whether it's in the draft, whether it's through its free agency. I think you guys do a very good job managing your team, and that's why you're so successful. And it's only a matter of time until you guys are legitimately super successful in the playoffs. And so, as a Steelers fan, it hurts to say that because my organization is doing the exact opposite, but I got to call it where I call it. You guys are a great organization. You look at the receiving core, and you guys have spent a lot of draft capital and a lot of money on wide receivers and weapons for Lamar Jackson. And that's not saying Lamar is a merchant of, good drafting and stuff, but you guys are spending high picks on players who can make a big impact. And I think that's great. And the thing is, in the slot, you could put Zay Flowers in the slot. I do love the fact that he can play so well in the boundary as well. But you have a lot of really good receivers in this draft that you can draft for really good value, that you don't have to force it early. And you got guys like Tez Walker, of course, Deontay Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. You picked him up late, so I think it bleeds over into the new year. Not 100% sure how that works, but I digress. You guys did a great job. Honestly, you did a great job building up that offense. As long as you guys can stay healthy, I really do think that you are still a championship contender and probably one of the best offenses in the entire NFL, if not the best on paper. For the defense, you look at this defensive front, and Madubuike, he's really, really solid. You paid him a big contract. He deserves it, in my opinion. Michael Pierce, the thick INT, love that. I love when defensive interiors get interceptions. I was a huge fan of Travis Jones coming out, had him as a late first grade, and I love him to death. Great pickup. I do think that this defensive end spot, the odd front defensive end, is an area where I'd want to upgrade. And I know Calais Campbell, that's kind of the mold that you want going forward. So the good news is that we have that in this class, whether that'll be a Jordan Birch in round 2, or else we can continue pressing it down the line. There's a couple other guys that I'd like to toss in there as well. But this is a really, really big opportunity to be able to fully solidify that front. You look at the edge rushers, and it's pretty obvious you guys do need some edge rush help as well. Obviously, you got Odafe Owe, Adisa Isaac. Like, you have names here. Kyle Van Noy, in my opinion, has been like the most successful. He's been very, very reliable over his entire tenure. For pretty much the entire career, he's had very underrated player. Been a big fan of him. David Ojabo just hasn't lived up to it. So, I mean, I do think pass rusher is a big position to potentially address. You look at the linebacker spot, Trenton Simpson obviously is going to be the heir apparent. I hope that he continues to ascend. And then Roquan is Roquan, right? There's no reason to overanalyze Roquan Smith. He is arguably the second best linebacker in the entire NFL. Maybe third if you talk about Zach Bond, if he can continue repeating what he did. But it's pretty clear that there's a top two, and Roquan is in it at the moment. You look at the cornerback room. Nate Wiggins, first round pick. Loved it. You also talk about like TJ Tampa. He's developmental. I was not a big TJ Tampa guy. B. Steve ended up being a little bit of an issue this past year. He has a lot of potential. I mean, I do think he should be like in a rotation, but I mean, him being a starter was a little bit of an issue. Marlon going to the nickel, just like he revamped his career, and I love that for him. So, like, very big fan of that for sure. But then you look at the safety room, and I mean, Jalen Armour Davis, I actually thought that's a really good pickup back in the day. Hoping he continues developing and stuff. I mean, I know it's time's taken, but, I really do want to see him grow and develop. Trey White, you guys do a good job with the older prospects, kind of just bringing them in and keeping them and like kind of maximizing what they have in terms of value. So I think that's great. You look at the defensive side, and you got Kyle Hamilton here. Ardarius Washington, you guys, he's an RFA. I believe that's what the black is. Yeah, so he's an RFA. So he's an RFA. Bring him back. Just do it. And then you do need a 3 safety set. That's what y'all love, to have multiple safeties on the field. Kyle Hamilton needs to have the ability to just kind of move and lurk around. And I want a deep safety. And that's why I'm going to be going Malachi Starks for that first pick. But I do think you guys are in a great spot. You need to go after one more safety, another boundary corner, in my opinion, a defensive end, and maybe a starting interior offensive line and a slot receiver. With free agency involved, that's a good spot to be in. So, again, I already telegraphed exactly what I'm going to be doing here. There's some other players, if you don't end up seeing Malachi Stark select at this point. Gray Zabel's an excellent option, in my opinion. He also has the mobility and the flexibility that, you kind of valued in Tyler Linderbaum. And I think that Gray Zabel would be excellent next to him. So that would be my top 2 picks. James Pierce, personality concerns are there. I already talked about it ad nauseum. I love James Pierce as a prospect in terms of the talent on the field. I do have my worries about him off. So it is what it is, but EDC would go Malachi Starks 10 out of 10. That's just such a good player. When the problem is his stock is fallen for a BS reason. People see, he did worse this year, so he is worse. But they don't analyze the fact that he was worse because he was being put more consistently in the slot. Let's look at this. So look at that. Straight up 100 rep difference. That is, let's just do some quick math here. About a 50% jump from 2023 to 2024. And you see the drop off. And his biggest issue game, in my opinion, was versus Texas. What happened there? He was in the slot versus Matt Golden. And the year before in 2023, what was his worst performance, in my opinion? Versus Bama in the slot versus Isaiah Bond. I think he just has issues in the slot, which you don't need a nickelback. That's why you have Marlon Humphrey. When he plays deep, he is awesome. And he tested out faster than I thought he was. Not much, but he still did. And I have a ton of faith in Malachi Starks. I don't know why people haven't been mentioning that enough, but he's falling, and you guys are going to be the beneficiary of it, in my opinion. I think it is what's going to happen. I hope that some teams are actually smart enough to understand that usage determines how well you play. Like, where you're put can kind of change that. So fingers crossed for Malachi Stark's sake, but for your sake, it ends up being a big net positive. So at number 59, we got the Baltimore Ravens. Of course we do. This is a Ravens mock draft, but Shamar Turner's interesting. He was number 35 for me coming into the year as an edge rusher, ended up transitioning full-time interior. He's someone who could be that odd front defensive end that you're looking for. I love JT Tuimoloau. He's an even front end. I don't really want to kick him to the inside. Jordan Burch is the one who I'm looking at pretty heavily here because, again, I'm a big fan of the interior-exterior flexibility. Now, you could try to address the interior of the offensive line here with one of these players, but the problem is, with these tackles, you want them to have a future at tackle. That's not going to be something that we need to do. So if you really are looking at it, it's like Belton on the interior, but again, you're going to be looking at him as a tackle. So you're looking at Tate Ratledge, you're looking at Wyatt Milam, you're looking at Savania, and those are guys who are probably going to be there at 91. So that's what we're going to do there. So looking at what we can do here at 59, I talked about that boundary corner position. And this is a good spot to be in. It's a very good spot to be in. And I do think there's a big drop-off. Like, you have Ben Morris and Darian Porter. There's a big drop-off after that. Of course, you guys know me. I love Jalen Smith. I love Mac McWilliams. I would want the nickel spot to be open as well for them because they are a little bit shorter. But I'm looking at Ben Morris and Darian Porter here. And I've taken these guys a couple times, but I've been pretty reserved on taking Ben Morrison here. And, like, hip injuries aside, because he's had 2 hip surgeries, if he did not have that, like, my grade on Ben Morrison was a legit blue chip corner 1 coming in, not the corner 1 in the class, but a blue chip legitimate corner 1 before the injury. And he had a hip surgery in high school. The question is, are we going to throw away the multiple years where he was healthy before that because we were worried? And I think at 59, EDC is going to look at that and be like, well, we can make this work. We do need a boundary corner. We're going to go after best player available, and we're going to take a shot on it. So feel free to put Darian Porter if you guys like, because you guys do value speed. Feel free to do that if you like. That's the beauty of these mock drafts. But I do think the best value, especially based on Trev's board, is to go after Ben Morrison there. And then, of course, at 91, this is where we can end up addressing the interior offensive line spot. But again, let's look and let's make sure that the 3-4 defensive end spot couldn't be filled with someone else. You got Peebles here, but honestly, I feel very comfortable at 128 with, Femi Oladejo could be this pick here if you wanted to. I do think an extra pass rusher could be worth more than interior offensive lineman, like looking at the guys available. Let's take a peek. We could try to see who falls to 128. Shout out to Antoine Powell-Ryland, man. Just sucks that his arm like this so bad. But Femi Oladejo, he's an even front defensive end, but the fact that he's played will linebacker as well and off ball, to me, makes me feel very comfortable with him in an odd front as an outside linebacker. That's what's like so awesome about him. He can be in 2-point or on an even front, which is good, especially in nickel packages. I might be rocking Femi Oladejo here. Again, I could play the board and get him at 128. I think it's disingenuous because Femi might be a second round pick, right? Like, I think that's fair. And I usually am an absolute merchant for the interior offensive lineman slipping and like just kind of like snagging them at this spot to where I don't feel like I really want to do that. And you guys snipe guys on day 3 all the time. So it kind of is a thing for y'all to do. I feel very comfortable with that. Femi Oladejo, former linebacker, best run defending edge rusher in the class, by the way. So you're going to have an instant early down impact. He's going to be about 260 pounds. Good explosiveness. Again, look at that 9.3% run stop rate. And that backs up what he does on tape as well. Still developing, but he ended up showing so much growth over the offseason at the Senior Bowl. He was so much better than he was even on the field. I think that I have a lot of faith in him. Ooh, Ahmed Hassanin is here too? You could use him as the odd front defensive end. That would be intriguing. We could double up here. Let's see what's up. All right. Like, I don't want to get a little too crazy. We do have pick number 136 as well. Tyler Beatty could be a fun odd front defensive end, but he told me at the Shrine Bowl that he's more of an even front defensive end, and I respect that. He talks about modeling his game after like Max Crosby and such. But I mean, looking at players where the even front defensive end is not doing too well on this front, we might have to look on the defensive interiors for that. I know that I personally like being able to have some guys to be able to flex. Ooh, Junior Tafuna is a really good player. Very underrated talent. Cam Jackson's getting a ton of love. He's a nose tackle. Ty Robinson's probably going to be the dude who I go after. I've only taken him for one team so far in these mock drafts, so I feel very comfortable with that. Talking about wide receivers, the biggest need is a little bit of an issue, but, you know, we're going to be, in air quotes, merchants again and just kind of be happy with what's up with that. Dylan Gabriel would be a good backup quarterback, if I'm going to be honest. Great mobility. Like, we kind of do need a backup quarterback, and this would be a relatively inexpensive option. But I don't want to spend a 4th-round pick on a quarterback that's never going to start, right? So I actually like the idea of Ahmed Hassanin being able to go and be able to test him out as a no. I was talking to you guys about that just a second ago. I do feel comfortable going after Ty Robinson for that role. So if we're going to do that, we're going to go Ty Robinson. What are we going to do here? We could go after Johnny Cornelius, Logan Brown, Emory Jones. Again, I think Emory Jones is a little bit underrated at this point. You know what? Dylan Gabriel's not a bad choice because Dylan Gabriel really does fit. And then if you do want to take games off with Lamar, you still could end up having a lot of success there. This is one of those spots where it is a little bit of a tough decision, for sure. Because again, so far, just in case you guys are like not tracking properly, which happens to the best of us, brother. You got Malachi Starks here for our third safety, Ben Morrison, hoping that he can stay healthy to be our boundary corner too, and then Femi Oladejo to be our outside linebacker pass rusher, who also does have the size to kick inside if need be. But I'm looking right now at Dillon Gabriel, and I do think that this is going to be a 4-year contract that ends up being a big net positive. He has the mobility, he has the precision. That might be the way I want to roll. Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, we could go interior offensive line here, but like, let's not play around. I like the idea. Let's test it out. Let's go Dillon Gabriel here. Yeah, I mean, might as well see what happens. And so at 136, if you guys don't get Malachi Starks early, I think Zy Alexander as a safety would be a really, really good choice. But looking at, and then Billy Bowman as well. Like, I honestly think I might lock in Luke Kandra. I've taken him before, but of course I've been saying like, hey, you could take him or another the interior offensive lineman. Luke Kandra is a good offensive lineman. Like, especially at this spot, 6'4", 323. Like, he's a very, very good offensive lineman and somebody who I'd probably feel very comfortable taking with here. You could go Pat Bryant, and looking at the receivers we have, do we have like a legit contested catch guy? I mean, we have enough guys on the boundary to where I feel pretty comfortable with it. Kyle Williams has been taken a couple times in these, but it's been a minute since we've taken Kyle Williams as well. Maybe we should just go after the wide receiver route. I feel like we should. So, yeah, let's go after Kyle Williams here. That's a good value for him. We could go Jalen Lane at like 176. Jalen Lane might be, it's the better move, in my opinion, if we do. Let's go Luke Kandra, and then we'll go after Jalen Lane. I like that. Luke Kandra are going to be the choice there. And then 176, hopefully we get lucky, and we do. Jalen Lane's a stud. I mean, you're going to be using him as an explosive slot guy, a little bit undersized, but, you know, again, we have guys. I mean, if you want to get someone who's going to be more of an X build, we got Caden Prather, but I do see guys like lurking in the wings, like Tez Walker, who should have that size and speed ability. I want someone to be a reliable slot. Jalen Lane, to me, is going to be exactly that. At number 184, Ty Ingram Dawkins could be that 3-4 defensive end as well. I mean, like, he's flexible all over the place. You look at that build. I mean, he's a very unique player that tested out very well. So could be someone who is worth taking a swing on. Again, I talked about Junior Tafuna as well. Junior Tafuna is a really underrated prospect. Very underrated prospect. And honestly, for him to be an odd front defensive end, really good value at this point. I know I talked about Ty Robinson, but Junior Tafuna has gotten no love from like anybody, and I feel kind of bad about that because he deserves a lot more love. And this is a team that takes some underrated players that are just damn good. And so I'm going to continue the Eric DeCosta route of taking damn good players that are slipping. At number 204, Caden Prather's still here. That's hard to pass on because we got Jalen Lane, but I mean, a legitimate X-build receiver who has great acceleration. Like, he's legit. Like, he's a good route runner. Obviously, again, also at Maryland, but reliable hands, not a contested catch guy. I don't know if I said he was a contested catch guy. That's my bad if I did, but just a reliable X build. That's really solid value. And again, Maryland is right down the street, so we're going to go and pick him up and just continue adding firepower where firepower is needed. So at pick number 210, this is why you guys do so well. You just have so many picks that you could just throw at guys. This is going to be a little bit of bullshit because Holland Pierce is going to go probably end of day 2, early day 3, but Holland Pierce could end up slipping here if guys are a little bit worried about his health or something, because he was notoriously very big when he ended up coming to Rutgers, but he still is big. He's just a lot more in shape at 344. The dude's a stud, man. I mean, like, 15 pressures, but he was in a very unique system there in Rutgers. I have a lot of faith in him, and especially to grow him behind for the next 2 to 3 years behind Ronnie Stanley. Like, legit insane potential. So at pick number 213, we have 2 more picks here. We could try to get some depth with nose tackle Cam Jackson, but, you know, I feel like we're doing pretty fine overall. We could try to reinvest. We could actually go after Ty Robinson because we could have Tafuna be like in a rotation with Ty Robinson at these odd front defensive tackle / ends. But I do think that we might even try to take another swing at some cornerback value here if it is available. And I'm forgetting which, like Trev keeps shifting this board up, so I respect that. It does keep things fresh and exciting. Like BJ Adams, someone who I really love. Mac McWilliams is one of my favorite players, but I don't really think that he fits the prototype of what you guys have built here. Tommy Hill's not athletic enough. Central Cypress isn't either. I'm going to get off that train. Offensive line-wise, again, we could go for another interior offensive line. So far, we have taken Holland Pierce and a Luke Kandra. Dylan Fairchild, good value. Jackson Slater, same thing, as well as Miles Frazier. But Miles Frazier fits the bill a little bit less, in my opinion. Not a great option, in my opinion, for what you guys are looking for long run, and especially based on the physical build. I'm actually going to go Ty Robinson here. Yeah, I already did it for the Steelers, so I'm going to do it for you guys as well. Ty Robinson is going to be a good value there because now you have Tafuna as well as Robinson to play defensive tackle and 3-4 defensive end. And I think that's going to be a really, really good rotation there. At 245, I could go after another defensive back here, just, get some extra depth involved. But, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to take a swing on Dante Trader. The problem is we do have a lot of depth safeties, right? You have Bo Braid where, actually it's not as much as I thought. That's not a bad idea. But if you do bring back Ardarius Washington, you're going to have your 3 safeties. Let's do it. I'm like, with a 3 safety set, having 1 safety as like a legitimate guy who should be taking some reps, I do have a bit of an issue with that. Dante Trader is going to pair back up with Bo Braid and provide the boom, so to speak. So, quick recap. We got Malachi Starks being that legit free safety to be able to allow Kyle Hamilton to do whatever he pleases. We got Ben Morrison, where if healthy, he is a legit corner 1 with another corner 1 there in Nate Wiggins. We have our outside linebacker and an early down run defender in Femi Oladejo, who can also play on an even front. We also have Dylan Gabriel to be a legitimate high-end backup quarterback for the next 4 years. We have Luke Kandra. Joining him is Holland Pierce as well to provide depth on that offensive line. You got a slot receiver here in Jalen Lane who could be taking reps right away if he needs to, but not necessarily. You can have him as a good guy to take some reps. Caden Prather, also someone who's a really good route runner, ex-build receiver, reliable hands, like good player to have. Then you also look at the defensive line here, Ty Robinson Jr., Tafuna, and Dante Trader coming in as that depth piece in the secondary. So overall, really good value across the board. Pretty much the whole entire battle of the day 3 was all red logos too. I'm just realizing that. I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty sick. But regardless, hopefully you guys did enjoy that. Thank you so much for watching. Love you. See you on the far side. Peace.